Hey guys, and welcome to another video. In this one, I want to talk about part of my process when I go about developing games. And that is the initial stage, which is the prototype phase. When I have an idea for a game, I always like to kind of test it out using very simple primitives. I create the game loop from start to finish and just include the core elements of interaction, just to test that the game is fun, before I invest all the time in actually going about creating all the nice artwork and all the audio and visual effects. Because no matter how much a game looks really cool, if it's not fun, then the players aren't going to like it. So if it's fun at this very early stage, you know that it's a wise investment for your time. So what we'll do now, if I just explain what this is. So I've got my game idea here. This is my prototype. I've just got a wall of buttons here, which is kind of inspired by a trampoline park I went to a couple of years ago before COVID. And there was this kind of wall of lights, and you had to kind of put the lights out before the timer ran out. And I thought, well, that was pretty cool, and why not try and make a VR fitness game where you had to put the lights out before the timer ran out and expired, and you lost a life. And the idea is just see how far you can go, and then maybe in the future you can store that and try and kind of challenge your friends, kind of thing. So I set about making this grid, and if I show you how it runs, and then we can take a look at how I've put the prototype together. Let's jump into VR. Now this might be quite hard to see. It's not really designed to be played sitting down. So when the game goes, you've got to put the lights out. I can step back here. See, the lights come on. I've got my controllers, have to reach out, turn off the lights. And if you pass that sequence, they all go green. And then you have to put out more lights in less time. And then the idea is you just keep seeing how far you can go. And if you get one wrong, you fail the level. So it's getting more harder now. I'm having to move about a little bit more. So this is quite good fun already, and I can kind of tell that once I got some visual effects in here, audio. No, I failed. Once I got the audio in here, the visual effects, it's going to be quite good fun. And maybe you could do something cool with the cubes, like move them around and do some really nice stuff. So that would be game over. So you can see how basic it is. I've got my cubey little hands. I haven't even bothered putting hands in here, and it's literally just the buttons here in front of me, and then I just have to tap the ones that are yellow, and if I get it wrong, it goes game over. So I can tell at this stage, even by putting something really simple together, it's quite good fun and probably worth spending time now creating a small little virtual environment, creating a better button 3D model, and adding the visual effects and all the music on top. And we haven't wasted our time, because at this stage, if it's not fun when we're playing it, then it's not going to be fun later on down the line. You can tell it's not going to be any good, and you can move on to your next idea. So let me just show you how this is quickly put together. So I have the core of the game here is in this grid. I have a grid controller. If I open up my Visual Studio, try and make it a bit bigger so you can see actually what's going on. So my grid controller is set up as a singleton, although I didn't really use it. And the first thing that happens is I get the buttons within my grid, so I can lay out the grid however I want to. Each button has a button object script on it, which is just controlling material that's shown on it, and it also had a button interaction script on there, check the hits as well, and then pass it to my grid controller. So it gets all the buttons in my grid, and I've got things to control like the activation time and the activation amount. And then the idea is that we have a timer that starts as soon as you hit a start button. It fires off initiate sequence, which allows the timer to run, and then we start calculating the interval. So when we calculate the interval, all we're doing is checking how much time's elapsed in that round, and if the time's gone, then we fail, and we just check to see if we've got any buttons still active. We're also activating the hit object, so it's turning on the buttons that we have to try and find. And to do that, it basically gets random numbers and stores them in a list. Each random number is unique, so I've got some code here for actually that random number generation and returning a list. Probably made that a little bit more complicated than I need to. I'm going through my random number list and activating those buttons. And then once So once the buttons are active, the timer is going on in the background. If I hit one of those buttons from the button interaction script, it sends a message to the grid controller here that the button's been hit, and it passes us the button. And if that button is one that can be turned off, then we're gonna change it to green, which is what the hit success is. And then we'll keep going around, but if we press the wrong button, then it's an instant fail and it's gonna deactivate my grid, turn them all red. So another good idea for prototyping is that now I would know that whilst the game's really fun, I could go through this code and maybe pull bits out that I don't use, then I can really go ahead and tidy it up and make it more efficient as time goes on. But it's all kind of just driven, this game's all just kind of driven through the grid controller. I have a game manager as well, and that's just controlling the lives and bits and pieces of the UI as well. So all very kind of simple, and the game's really fun. Let's take a look at now, once I've decided that this game is going to work, let's take a look at how I progress it to the next level. So after spending a little bit of time on the prototype and taking it to the next stage, which is to add a little bit more flourish to that prototype, I got my core elements working, but it'd be nice to kind of see it in context. So I decided to spend a little bit of time just roughing out an environment, and these are just kind of primitive objects, kind of like inspired by Beat Saber a little bit in its simplicity, and just allowing me to get a feel of what it's going to be like in VR. And then later on down the line, could take this and build upon it even more to make it really cool. So I've taken the stuff I did before, and I've added like particle systems here and there, and some nice lights and a bit of audio, just so I can see how that's going to sound and react in VR. And then this is what you could call an alpha or early prototype, and I would generally give this to other people to play and get their feedback on where it could go next. And then that's where I could start to form the bigger game as a whole. So I've got my core interaction here, but fleshing it out, you might have different scenes with different grid layouts. You could have like an introduction scene where you're able to pick the song that's played during the box smashing process. But what I think we'll do is we jump into VR. Let's have a look at where I've left this for now. And you can see in this very short video just a little bit of my game development process from very early rough prototype to, say, early alpha. That shows you a little bit of my development process, and you can actually get this whole project from my Patreon page and have a rummage through it and see how it's all put together, and also actually download and try the experience for yourself. I really hope you found this video kind of useful and will help shape your game development journey in the future, from like prototyping your game as grey boxes and just trying out those core pieces of interaction first, and then moving into something a little bit more fleshed out that you can maybe play test, give to your friends or testers, and just see what the feedback is before you go ahead and get really stuck in to properly developing your game, and have a much more informed decision and fleshed out process by doing it in stages rather than committing yourself at the very beginning and making it really difficult to go back. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.